You have found what lights you up. I'm your host, Sunny the Life Coach, and I'm here because I see you searching for something or someone out there to help you feel better. Something to take away the pain that you're feeling, the inadequacies. I know all of the things that happen in life can leave you feeling empty. Your search is over. This podcast is all about finding your own freedom and power to love yourself enough to shine in the ways you were always meant to, the ways in which you are already fully capable of. If you're ready for some real talk, some serious truth bombs, and a few F-bombs, you are in the right place. Let's do this. Let's get lit. Hey there and welcome. As always, I'm so grateful that you chose to press play on this episode. I am still riding the highs from my retreat experience that I relayed in the last episode, if you were able to catch that one. I truly learned so much about myself over that weekend. Yes, being in the high vibe energy of others was a bit intoxicating. But I also realized how much high vibe energy that I have within myself. And now I'm getting better at finding it and tapping into it. It is simply amazing. Ooh, I'm getting those chills again just talking about it. What does that do for you? I want you to think about that question. Truly consider what it is. What is it for you? If you're not quite sure, maybe some experimentation is in order. It's definitely something that we would work on together if you decided to choose me as your coach. I'm always happy to dig into the fun things. Yet, often before we can get there, we have to go wade through the muck of your conditioning. The things that your parents taught you, maybe your grandparents, maybe aunts and uncles and cousins too, maybe siblings. Your family of origin will definitely teach you some life lessons, and they may not have always been pleasant. I have been having more and more conversations lately with friends and acquaintances about their childhood traumas and how they have affected the way they live their lives today. So it's not always a matter of saying something like, well, we just need to let that go, move on from it, and deal with the present moment, hash out your trauma in therapy. Although that is one of the distinctions between coaching and therapy. Therapists help you sort out your past, and coaches help you sort out your present and plan the future. Therapists help you heal, and coaches help you to level up and create a new version of yourself. I do agree with that. That's why some of my clients have therapists as well, or they have had a therapist in the past. I have done so myself. While I agree with the distinctions on a surface level, the reality in which we live is far more nuanced than any labels or definitions can adequately explain. And what I have found through these recent conversations is that some of us have been through some pretty awful things that were perpetrated by our own families, and often as children, because children innately trust the adults around us to protect us and keep us safe. And when they don't do that, say in situations of abuse, we take on the shame, we hold the secrets, and we just muddle through life carrying it with us. When awful things happen to you by a family member, it affects the entire lens through which you view life. It truly does. It becomes ingrained in us. It becomes our very identity, even if we never share our secrets. The traumas that we have experienced impact the decisions that we make, how we live, and who we are willing to trust. It is the elephant in the room, and sometimes we have to go there in order to understand new perspectives and have meaningful shifts in the ways that we view others, and most importantly, how we see ourselves. Because honestly, how we see ourselves is how we see everyone else. If you feel unworthy, you just view things differently. You see life differently, and it is not pleasant. Now, I can't think of an abusive situation that I personally encountered as a child. Yes, I was spanked for discipline, both at home and at school. Public paddlings were a thing when I was growing up and where I was growing up. Eastern Kentucky held on to corporal punishment of students for quite some time, I believe. How did that experience shape me? Well, I don't spank my child. I just don't. Have I wanted to? Oh, yeah. But I didn't want him to have that memory. I didn't want him to hear, "This hurts me more than it hurts you," while I'm railing on his butt with my hand. I didn't want to tell him, "Go outside and pick a switch and make it a good one, or I'll pick the next one and you are not going to like it." Well, I wasn't going to like it either way. I didn't want to leave welts on his bare legs for not cleaning his room in a timely manner. And I don't hold any animosity toward my parents for spanking me. I do understand now that they were just doing the best they could with what they knew. This is how they were raised. This is how children were disciplined for generations. It's just how the world worked. That was their mindset on that particular topic. Children misbehave, they get spanked. So when does it end? Well, it ends with me. In this particular example, I'm not going to do it. My son is not going to carry that experience into parenthood. I'm breaking the cycle of destructive behavior. And that seems like a simple enough or maybe even obvious choice. Of course, I'm not going to choose to carry that forward to the next generation. And I could have also decided that I would. I could have decided that it was effective in teaching me to respect my elders, and I will demonstrate that effectiveness with my child. I'm sure some of my peers have chosen that path, and that's their choice. But when we are considering breaking cycles, we have to do things differently than what was done to us. And when we do this, when we heal ourselves, then that carries over on a cellular level to the next 7 generations. My coach and mentor, Kim Guillory, talks about this often, and I absolutely believe it. She has immersed herself in studies of not only coaching, but also Eastern philosophies and so much more. So when you go through yoga teacher training, massage, and Reiki courses, just as an example of things that Kim has done, these are the things that you learn. You step outside of what you've always known and explore how other people heal and live their lives differently. Some of these Eastern philosophies span thousands of years, and those of us who are finding them and returning to them are definitely reaping the benefits of that awareness. So there is that too. There are cycles of trauma that we need to break, and there are also cycles of healing that we need to return to. That holistic healing that was driven underground through colonization and is now making a comeback. I just wish they wouldn't refer to it as New Age, because there is nothing new about it, but I digress. Back to the cycle breaking approaches. Maybe I'll do another episode on reconnecting to the essentials. Yeah, that sounds like a plan. Doing things differently than what was done to us. That seems like an easy enough choice to make. There are other approaches that some have taken as well, and that make your new chosen path a bit more difficult, though sometimes necessary. Those other ways include exposure and boundaries, 2 of the hardest things to implement in my personal experience. Let's go deeper than corporal punishment and tackle something like molestation or incest. I've spoken with a couple of authors on this show about their experiences. Laura Davis, author of The Burning Light of 2 Stars, and Lauren Dolly Duke, author of Shithouse. Those 2 you can find. Just search their names on my podcast. I don't have the episode numbers in front of me, but those 2 are really good at sharing their stories and sharing how they have overcome their traumas. Laura was abused by her grandfather as a child. She repressed her memories of it, which is often what our brains do to protect us. When she remembered as an adult and she chose to expose him, it fractured her relationship with her mother. No one believed Laura. They thought she had made it all up. After all, why would she hold a secret so long? Well, for exactly that reason, right? We often, and especially women, may hold those secrets for a lifetime. And how do you think that impacts their quality of life, carrying that shame around? It has to be awful. And exposure can feel like a release and even somewhat of a relief. Of course, the choice is always yours. You know your family dynamics best. If you have secrets that you are holding simply to avoid judgment, know what the side effects will be for you and those you love. We are getting better about exposure in these times, in these particular times in which we are living. It is much more widely accepted by the general public than it used to be. Laura shares details in her book about the impacts of the exposure on her own life. And that would have been, if memory serves, probably in the 80s or so for her. But she doesn't regret her decision. And that's the key. When you approach a scenario of exposure, go in with eyes wide open and expect to be dismissed. Expect no one to believe you. Because while we may be getting better as a collective, as a society, in many families, those roots run deep. You're either with me or against me. That's the rhetoric you will hear. We are family, family first, things like that. You don't have to accept that anymore. That is your choice. If something like this has happened to you, definitely seek therapy to process and begin to heal. And once you've done that, let's talk about how to live your life in a new way that will keep that cycle broken for the next 7 generations. And even without exposure, I know some who are extra vigilant with their children or their grandchildren as a result of their own experiences. They keep them a little closer. They talk more openly and encourage the children in their lives to share, so there is an authentic trust created, not one of manipulation, but one of genuine caring and concern, one of protection. This may seem like the safest choice for some of us to make if we play out the possible scenarios of what an exposure would look like. The only thing I would caution with this approach is to hold awareness of whether you are overbearing or smothering. Sometimes when we are making decisions about parenting and we aren't providing context, children are confused because they don't understand the motivation behind you being on top of them all of the time. It sometimes seems a bit unfair how life works. We come into this world all wide-eyed and curious, full of wonder and big dreams. Then the adults around us show us how the world really works, and we don't understand until we become adults ourselves why our parents behaved the way that they did, if we ever understand at all. Again, some of those secrets never see the light of day. Anyway, assuming a protective role with the children in your life, with or without the component of exposure, is certainly an option that some of us choose. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, it just is. It is a choice that is available to you. Now, let's touch on boundaries for a moment. That's easier for some of us than it is for others. And I've covered this before, but it bears repeating because it was such a mind-blowing concept for me when I first heard it. I always thought of a boundary as a consequence. If you do this, I will respond by doing that. And you can certainly do that with boundaries. You can announce them. You can lay it out like a consequence, because in some ways it may be. There may be a consequence to an action. But the part that was mind-blowing was when I realized that you don't have to announce your boundaries. You can certainly agree to disagree. You can agree that you will never speak again, and you can hold to that. I know of people who have done that. I know of adult women who have exposed incest that has occurred in their childhood. Their mothers don't believe them, and they agree to never speak again. For example, mom would say, "That's a lie, and if you don't stop spreading that lie, or if you insist on continuing to speak about it to me, we have nothing to say to each other." And yes, that happened with author Laura Davis. Yet she was able to reconcile with her mother later in life. There are others that I know who never spoke to their mother again, or even mothers who gave an ultimatum: choose your story or this family. If you choose your story, then you not only lose me, you lose everyone else too. That happens. It does. And it's tragic. That's a mother who is not interested in breaking destructive cycles. She is more interested in protecting her image, perhaps. I don't know what the motives might be for someone to create such an ultimatum. All I know is that it does happen. Boundaries are simply your way to advocate for yourself, which is really what we should all be doing instead of looking to others to defend us, to come over to our side of the battle within a family. Boundaries are a way to empower ourselves in the areas that we can control. Now, what I just provided you were examples of how we traditionally view boundaries, like an agreement between two people, and we can certainly still do that. However, where I find boundaries most powerful is when I simply implement them myself without any fanfare, no announcement, no agreement. The other party doesn't even know about it. For example, if I see something on social media that really triggers me, I don't waste my time telling the person to stop posting that bullshit. I just quietly unfollow. I don't unfriend or block because then they will know. I just unfollow. I really like that feature a lot because sometimes my friends or family members go through these phases where they just decide to be complete assholes for a month or two. You know what I'm talking about? And then they go back to being their normal, cute selves, and I can appreciate them again. Refollow. Okay, we're now re-engaged. Let's see how this goes. I use social media as an example because you can do this in real life too. Just unfollow, disengage, move in a different direction with love. You don't have to announce it at all. You just implement. It's a beautiful thing. And it keeps you in the driver's seat. It keeps you in control. No, you cannot control what another human says or does. What you can control is your response to what others do or say. What you can decide is what your level of tolerance is for someone else's drama. Look, some people just get a charge out of fucking with you. They do. My husband is that way. He loves to fuck with me. It lights him up. But seriously, you know your people. You know them well enough to be able to discern when they are really poking the bear for their own entertainment. And if you're not down with that, guess what? You create a plan for the next time something like that happens and what your response will be. Will you simply walk away, remove yourself from the room, and go read a book if you're in the same household? That's what I like to do. Unfollow. I just find myself in a much calmer place at this point in my life, and I'm pretty unfuckwithable when it comes to the behavior of others. I cannot adequately express how freeing that is. As Rumi says, when someone beats a rug, the blows are not against the rug, but against the dust in it. I chose this quote for a couple of reasons. First, when I saw it, it aligned in my brain with my story of spankings as a child. The whole, this hurts me worse than it hurts you scenario, because I do understand now that it was the dust my parents were after, not me. They really were trying to teach me with the only methods they knew. But more than that, I want you to remember this quote when you think of your own experiences, whatever they have been. I want you to think of it when you are faced with a decision of creating a boundary or maybe even unfollowing. It's the dust that you are removing from your life, the toxicity. That doesn't mean that the other person is necessarily bad, although they may be. And it doesn't mean that you are bad. You are just looking out for yourself, and that may feel a little foreign at first, but it gets much easier. You'll find yourself settling right into a new normal of a new identity that is going to bring peace to this phase of your life. I know because I'm living it personally. If you would like to have a conversation about breaking the cycles of destructive family behavior, I am here for you. That is my work. That is my jam. It is my mission to help as many people as I can to see what is possible. This is a journey that is going to take more than a brief podcast episode to get you there, but I hope you found the information here a solid beginning. If you would like to go deeper, you can find the link to schedule a conversation with me in show notes. Together, we can and we will light up and shine on.